Bitti Mishra is a young, independent girl who works for a power distribution company and lives in a small town Bareily, India. She is a beloved daughter of her father Narottam Mishra, who runs a sweet store, and her mother Sushila is a teacher in a government school in the same town. One morning Narottam Mishra had to go to the toilet, but he finds his cigarettes missing. So he requests his wife Sushila to ask Bitti for a cigarette, as he was sure that Bitti had stolen the cigarette since she also smoked. So Sushila awakens Bitti and asks her if she had stolen the cigarettes. But Bitti replied that she did not know anything about the cigarettes and also she did not smoke. Then Bitti goes out and borrows a cigarette from her neighbor. But she puffs the cigarette first and then gives it to her father, who was already in the toilet. After that she goes to her mother and sits beside her. Bitti's mother Sushila also loves her a lot, and like every Indian mother is very much worried about her daughter and wants to get her married as soon as possible. So Sushila invites a family to see Bitti. But Bitti did not like the boy who came to see her and rejects him, which ends up in a family argument. Now Bitti gets very upset after the argument and decides to run away from her house. That night Bitti quietly leaves a letter while her mother was sleeping and gets away. Then she reaches the railway station and starts waiting for the train. Now since she was getting bored, she buys a book Bareily Ki Barfi from Munna, who is a book vendor in the station. Then she gets on the train and starts reading the book. As she continues reading the book, she strangely finds herself described in the book, to which she was surprised and also impressed by the writer. Now she cancels her plan of running away and returns back home. Then she visits her best friend Rama and tells her about the book. After that, Bitti gives the book to Rama and tells her that the book exactly described her and the author thinks her to be perfect however she is and likes her a lot. Then Bitti shows the author's name to Rama, who was Vidrohi. Now Bitti was so impressed by the book that she decides to meet the author at any cost. On the other side, we see Chirag, who runs a printing press in the same town. Chirag had a girlfriend named Bubbly whom he loved a lot. But Bubbly betrayed Chirag and married someone else. Now Chirag was broken down after the incident, so he wrote his entire love story and showed the same to his friend Munna, the book vendor. Now after reading the story, Munna suggested Chirag to publish his book, since the story Chirag had written could be the bestseller and make Chirag famous. But Chirag refused to do so as it could defame his ex. So they decide to publish the book with author's name Vidrohi, who was a school friend of Chirag. They visit Vidrohi's house and convince Vidrohi by force, and finally publish multiple copies of the book Bareily Ki Barfi. But sadly none of the book got sold, except the one bought by Bitti Mishra in the station. Now coming back to the present, Bitti tries hard to find the author Vidrohi online, but could not find anything about him. So she visits Munna, the book vendor, and asks him where the author Vidrohi lived. Now Munna lied to Bitti, saying he did not know where Vidrohi lived, but told Bitti that he knew the address where the book was printed. Then Munna meets Chirag and informs him about the incident. The next day Bitti visits the printing press, where she meets Chirag and asks him where the author Vidrohi lived. To which Chirag replied that Vidrohi had left the town Bareily long ago, but wanted to know why was Bitti searching Vidrohi. Then Bitti explains Chirag about the incident and the character mentioned in the book, which was exactly her. And now she wants to know how could a person exactly describe someone who had never met each other before. And that's the reason she wants to meet Vidrohi. Then Chirag tells Bitti that he could not share Vidrohi's phone number or address, but could be a messenger between them, and tells Bitti to write letters to Vidrohi. Now Bitti starts writing letters to Vidrohi. She even receives the replies that were written by Chirag in actual. And soon Chirag and Bitti became good friends and started having good times together. They also celebrated Chirag's birthday stealing sweets from Bitti's father's store, and it seemed like both of them started loving each other. Meanwhile, both Chirag and Bitti continued writing letters to each other, and Chirag had already fallen in love with Bitti. But Bitti did not know that the letters were written by Chirag, so one day when both of them met, Bitti tells Chirag that she had asked Vidrohi to meet her in her letters several times, but she did not receive any reply on the same. To which Chirag tells Bitti that Vidrohi was a famous writer and might be busy somewhere. After that, Bitti requests Chirag to bring Vidrohi to Bareily so that she could meet him. Now Chirag had no option and finally agrees to Bitti. Then Chirag and Munna go to Vidrohi's house and ask her mother regarding Vidrohi. In reply, Vidrohi's mother tells Chirag that her son Vidrohi is a sales manager in a multinational company now and shares his work location. Next day, Chirag and Munna together go to the location given by Vidrohi's mother. But there they find Vidrohi working as a salesman in a garment store on the contrary. Then they meet Vidrohi and tell him about the incident and also Chirag's love towards Bitti. And since Bitti hates arrogant people, Chirag tells Vidrohi to meet Bitti and show up himself like an arrogant man. He also asks Vidrohi to behave like a goon so that Bitti rejects him and Chirag gets his entry. But Vidrohi refuses to do so and gets back to his work. So Chirag and Munna blackmails to reveal Vidrohi's truth to his mother. Now Vidrohi had no choice and agrees to their plan. Then Chirag gets trendy clothes for Vidrohi and also changes Vidrohi's hairstyle. After giving him a new look, Chirag and Munna trains Vidrohi to be like a goon. Now Vidrohi also tries hard and soon changes himself like a goon as Chirag wanted him to be. After that, Chirag and Munna takes Vidrohi back to Bareily and Chirag informs the same to Bitti. Then Chirag arranges a meeting and Bitti along with her best friend Rama comes to visit Vidrohi. Now Vidrohi starts behaving like a goon as already planned, to which Bitti gets disappointed and decides to leave. But Rama was impressed by the way Vidrohi behaved and did not want to go. Vidrohi continues behaving like a goon and even misbehaves with the waiter. Now Bitti was shocked by Vidrohi's behavior and quickly leaves. Next day Chirag takes Vidrohi to Bitti's house, so that he gets rejected even by Bitti's parents. Vidrohi enters and starts behaving like a goon again. There they find Bitti's father Narottam Mishra suffering a chronic neck pain. Now showing off his oversmartness, Vidrohi tells that it was a matter of a few seconds for him to treat such pain. And to show off his skills, Vidrohi turns Bitti's father's neck and luckily treats his pain. Now the whole family including Bitti was impressed by Vidrohi's move. And all the plans that Chirag made was literally trashed. Now Chirag was totally disappointed on Vidrohi because he was sent to disappoint Bitti's parents and not to impress them. On the contrary. Chirag asks Vidrohi why had he treated Bitti's father and starts intimidating him for what he had done. Then frightened Vidrohi tells Chirag that he was instead trying to impress Rama and not Bitti because he liked Rama. The same evening Vidrohi meets Bitti coincidentally in a nearby marketplace. Bitti greets Vidrohi and asks what was he doing. But seeing Bitti, Vidrohi gets emotional and the scene shifts. Next day Chirag visits Bitti's mother Sushila in her school and gives her a new pair of eyeglasses since they were broken, so that he could impress Bitti's mother and get married to Bitti. But Bitti's mother asks Chirag to convince Vidrohi for her daughter, as Vidrohi was a good guy and Chirag's good friend. But in reply, Chirag tells Bitti's mother not to get their daughter married to Vidrohi, since he was divorced recently. After that, Chirag misguides Vidrohi, telling him that Rama's marriage has been fixed, and Vidrohi should propose Rama before it's too late. The next morning, Chirag, Vidrohi, Bitti and Rama go for a boat ride and Vidrohi proposed Rama on the boat. To which Rama replied that she also liked Vidrohi but could not marry him since he was a divorced man. Now Vidrohi was totally shocked as he was not even married and the date was literally ruined. The incident creates a great dispute between Chirag and Vidrohi. Now Vidrohi says that it was already too much for him and he could not accept any more of this. Moreover, Vidrohi calls Chirag a selfish man and challenges to take away Bitti from Chirag, leaving him helpless, same as he ruined Rama and Vidrohi's relations. The same day Chirag visits Bitti and finds her upset. Bitti now shares her decision of getting married to Vidrohi as he was a decent man and now it did not matter to her even if he is a divorced person. In the next few days, Vidrohi gets close to Bitti as per his challenge and spend a lot of good times together. Now slowly Chirag starts getting upset since Chirag saw everything going on but could do nothing about it. He now recalls all the good times he spent with Bitti and is broken down again. Now Chirag shares Munna about everything getting out of his hands and his helplessness. Meanwhile, Vidrohi comes there and invites Chirag and Munna to his engagement with Bitti. Now Chirag, out of his frustration, starts arguing with Vidrohi, to which Vidrohi tells Chirag that he was a selfish man and could never change himself. Then Vidrohi laughs at Chirag's helplessness and leaves. Now Chirag realizes his mistakes, remembering what he had done to Vidrohi earlier out of his selfishness. Now the same evening Chirag visits Vidrohi and apologizes to him for what he had done. He also gives a letter to Vidrohi where he had prepared a lovely speech for Bitti to be read on the engagement day. Now Vidrohi forgives Chirag and asks him to be present during the engagement for the sake of their friendship. Finally, the engagement day comes and Chirag is also present like every other guest in the party. Vidrohi the groom also arrives and Bitti's family gives him a warm welcome. Then Vidrohi approaches Chirag and talks to him in a croaking voice. He tells Chirag that he had a throat infection and will not be able to deliver the speech in this condition. Meanwhile, the engagement ceremony also starts. Now Vidrohi gets on the stage and tells everyone about the short speech he had prepared for Bitti. He also tells everyone that he would not be able to deliver the speech since he had a throat infection and invites Chirag to read out the speech on his behalf. Now Chirag gets on the stage and starts reading the speech, where he describes Bitti to be the most sweet girl he had ever met. He also tells about his pure love for Bitti and his dream to spend the rest of his life happily with her. Meanwhile, Bitti, who is already emotional listening to Chirag, gets on the stage. Now Chirag concludes the speech asking, "Will you marry me?" on behalf of Vidrohi, and calls Vidrohi to get on the stage. But Bitti stops Chirag and replies him with a yes to the proposal. Now Chirag was confused since it was Bitti and Vidrohi's engagement and he had read the letter on behalf of Vidrohi. Now everyone laughs at Chirag and his innocence, and Bitti finally reveals that actually it was Chirag and Bitti's engagement today. She also reveals that she already knew that Chirag was the real author of the book Bareily Ki Barfi, and it was told by Vidrohi that evening when Bitti and Vidrohi met on the marketplace. And since then Bitti wanted to know if Chirag really loved Bitti or it was only because Bitti resembled his ex. Bitti also tells Chirag that she was testing Chirag's love for her, and everything that happened with Chirag was part of Bitti and Vidrohi's plan, and Chirag had passed every test that she has taken. Now since everything was sorted out, Chirag and Bitti hug each other and Vidrohi apologized to Chirag for the trouble. And finally Chirag and Bitti gets engaged and the movie ends with a happy ending.